Welcome back to the historic episode 15. While the rest of the country is focused on the national championship, the biggest news in basketball just dropped right here in the 919. The Hubert Davis era has come to an end, and the search for the next leader of the Tar Heel just didn't stay local or in the family, sorta, but it went all the way to the NBA in a move that sent shockwaves from Denver to Chapel Hill. UNC has officially named Denver Nuggets head coach Mike Malone as the next head coach of North Carolina basketball. We're talking about an NBA champion and a leader of superstars and a coach who knows exactly how to build a winning culture at the highest level. But the questions remain. Can the NBA blueprint be the Carolina blueprint? Can he recruit the five-star players to Chapel Hill? Today, Darryl and I will break down the hire that changed everything. We're talking about the end of the search, the fit for Malone in the ACC and the Tar Heel, and what it means to be the future of the Blue Blood rivalry. Grab your headset. The Mike Malone era starts right now on the Blue Blood Rivalry podcast.
The Blue Blood TV podcast is available on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, guys, these shows grow when you share them. So we have a great show here. Share them with all your friends. Make them aware of the Blue Blood TV podcast.
Darryl, what's up, man?
What's up, Haas? How you doing, man?
Oh, man, I'm chilling. Did you we're on this pod, right? This pod is called Season 8, Episode 15, The Mile High Move, Mike Malone, and the new blueprint for North Carolina. This is a really big move from Carolina, and I'll tell you why. Because making Mike Malone the head coach of the University of North Carolina, they have broken the lineage. So let me give you the history.
Okay, I'm listening.
Dean Smith was coached by Fog Allen. Fog Allen was coached by James Naismith. Bill Guthridge was mentored by Dean Smith. Roy Williams mentored by Dean Smith. Brad Doherty, we're going to throw him in between Guthridge and Roy. Dean Smith, and Hubert Davis, Dean Smith. And that's a direct line to the beginning of basketball, which is James Naismith. So for the first time in our lives, the cord has been cut. Is this a necessary evolution of UNC in the modern era of NIL, Darryl? Tell me what you think.
I think yes. I think this move, the best way that I could describe this move is innovative, right? They went against the grain. They are surprising a lot of us. I think you and I were very much gung-ho on them sticking in the family. I know you mentioned Kenny Smith on the last episode. I think that we all thought that it would probably be somebody in the family. And even when they started talking about going outside of the family, outside of the Carolina blue blood, passionate history of this program, they never, ever do we think that it would be Michael Malone. And I like the alliteration that you had with the mile high move, Michael Malone, right? And I think that just as innovative as you were with that line, this move for Carolina was a big, innovative splash not only in the collegiate headlines, but I think in basketball headlines in general.
I mean, okay. He coached the Denver Nuggets. I mean, here's where I am, Darryl. I wanted to come on the show when UNC got their next coach, and I wanted to be hyped. I wanted to feel like we're back. I wanted to feel like we're going to get all the recruits. And I don't know. I mean, I don't feel that. Okay. I wanted the guy to be a Carolina guy for many reasons. Like when Carolina comes to Cameron, when Duke comes to the Dean Dome.
Yeah.
Everybody who's part of that lineage knows
Yeah,
what that means, knows what that feels like. We're going to go into a stadium twice. We're going to go to Cameron. We're going to go into the Dean Dome. And the only one that's not going to know what's going on is Mike Malone.
man. Haas,
He's
listen.
not, you know, I mean,
Li-
he's not going to know
Listen,
what's going on.
listen. Let's be clear though. We also have to bring attention to the fact that first and foremost, I don't know if you saw the press conference, but obviously his daughter plays a factor in him coming to the university. She plays on the Carolina volleyball team, and he did speak very highly and passionately about how he wanted to try to, while he came there, he had to ask her first, right? And so I think off of that alone, he knows about the Carolina Duke rivalry. He knows about the tradition of Carolina basketball, but this is a basketball guy. And it doesn't take a very, very big expert. A novice basketball individual can know the history. It's going to know the history of the Carolina name, the Jordan brand, the sky blue, right? This is not foreign to Mike Malone. While he may not have college experience in the coaching ranks, he also is a champion. And I think that I need to say this. I love this move. I love this move. I love it for a couple reasons. One, it's just doubling down on Carolina wanting to be big cinema in this era of social media. Last year, or a couple years ago, it was Belichick, right? Last year's Bill Belichick first season at the university, big splash. And while I'm not comparing Mike Malone to the quality of coach in his respective sport as Bill Belichick, it's also a huge move because it's unexpected and it's a big name and it's a big time champion, Hassan, with NBA connections at that. So there's a lot of reasons which we'll get to while I like this move, but if nothing else, it's Hollywood. It's what Carolina expects to be now,
It is,
and that's
it
a
is,
brand. That's a
it is
brand.
not, it is not a Hollywood move.
It's
Okay.
Hollywood, man.
It is not a Hollywood move. Okay. Let me ask you a question. Have you read have you seen any of the comments left on this podcast? Most of the people say this is authentic. This is, you can tell that they're reporting right from Tobacco Road. You can tell that these guys are on the ground, living it, breathing it. That's why people from around the world hear our podcast, right? Because it's
Okay.
authentic, right? We're talking about stuff that only people who have been here understand, right?
Okay.
So, and if you haven't been here, now you get to go onto Tobacco Road and you get to find out what's really cooking, right?
Yeah.
Mike Malone does not know what a one game opportunity means in the Dean. He doesn't know what every possession means, right? He comes from the NBA, 10 years with the Denver Nuggets, Sacramento Kings, Golden State Warriors, New Orleans Hornets. Great. I love it. But this is about every touch of the ball, every possession. This is different. And the reason why Duke Carolina is the best basketball game on earth is because every touch of the ball matters. And I'm not sure he understands what he's getting himself into. And I'm not sure that this is good for his daughter because, I mean, she's having a marvelous time at UNC. And right now it's all roses and everybody's happy. But this thing could flip very quickly. I mean, Darryl, you've been here on a Tobacco Road. You saw what happened with Belichick. This thing could flip. $50 million? For $50 million, there's no downtime. And you know how many players he has, Darryl?
How many players does he have on?
Zero.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
has zero.
But okay. But also, that's not a Michael Malone problem, right? He didn't create that problem. That's what I should say. That's a Carolina problem. And I don't know that any coach was it's the NIL era, right? We're in a different era of basketball. We're in the transfer portal era. You watch guys, I think there's a few guys that actually just left Duke, or they didn't leave Duke, but entered the portal from Duke, Faminia being one of them. You just never know what you're going to get with these guys year to year as far as players are concerned. And so them not having any players is not a Michael Malone problem. What Michael Malone now has to have a solution for is them not having any players, right? And so he has to figure out what the future of Carolina basketball looks like, and he has to figure that out very quickly. And I'm not buying the whole he doesn't know what it's like to coach in a collegiate game. The guy is a basketball savant. He is a basketball head. He is one of the best. He was one of the best coaches in the league while he was in the league. And I can definitely see him being one of the better coaches in collegiate basketball. My issue, though, Hassan, with this hire is exactly what you pointed to, and that's $50 million. Okay, that's like $8.3 million a year, right? We're talking Bill Self money. Dan Hurley doesn't even make that. And Dan Hurley just made the national championship game. So if I had a gripe about this deal, it's not the coach, it's not the selection. I love that. I do not love what they're spending on a coach when they could be out there shopping for players. And so I think that's where my biggest cause for concern is about this move. But I love the hire as far as fit for this universe.
$50 million comes expectations. Okay. Like, it's the same conversation that I had about Belichick. These aren't young guys, these are older guys. And with $50 million comes expectation. There's going to be no downtime, right? So, like, I say to you, do you think Bill Belichick going up in some mom's house in rural North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina is going to get that mom to let her son come to the school? Do you?
Yeah,
I don't. I
I
don't.
think
I don't.
that
I
he
don't even
has
think Malone.
connections.
Malone is not a big name. This guy.
I,
This
I
guy is not a big name.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't know if I agree with these. He's not. Do you think that Kenny Smith might have been a bigger name as far as you being able to put name and face together? Sure. But when we're talking about pure basketball and NBA connections, while Mike Malone might not be a big name, the people that Mike Malone could bring with him into your house to have that conversation with you could be big names, right? And so the connections themselves, Mike Malone right now is going to sell himself, but he's also going to sell the brand, which he has the best brand in basketball, right? We're talking top three in I'm not talking college basketball. I'm talking about basketball. I'm talking LA Lakers, right? I'm talking Boston Celtics. The North Carolina Tar Heels are that kind of a brand. That by itself means a lot, but you have to have that moolah. And while he might be able to say, other guys can pay you right now, I'm going to give you what you need. I'll give you the tools that you need. I know what it takes to be at the next level and be the most successful at the next level. And I can give you longevity more than I can give you what others can give you right now.
Okay, let's talk about the NBA blueprint. Okay, we agree. Mike Malone is a pro's pro. He's a pro coach, right? He coached
Yeah.
Jokic to a title. Do you think his NBA pedigree will actually be more attractive to five-star recruits in the NIL era than a Jerry Stackhouse who has the same daggone connections, but brings the Dean Smith connection that goes all the way back to Naismith, and he knows what it means to win the Carolina Duke game and be a Tar Heel?
Do I think that he can do that more than Jerry Stackhouse? Do I think that he can do that similarly to Jerry
I mean,
Stackhouse? I
I
mean,
mean, look, okay. So you get Mike Malone, right?
yeah, sure.
A pro's pro, right? No connection to the school, right? And then there's
Yeah.
this guy out here, Jerry Stackhouse. And if Will was here, he would say, oh, he didn't do well at Vanderbilt. Okay. You arm Jerry Stackhouse with $50 million where he can walk around and go into the homes of every kid in the South in New York City. You think Mike Malone is more attractive to five-star recruits than Mr. Jerry Stackhouse? I think you're freaking crazy.
Do I think Mike Malone is more
No,
attractive?
answer the
No.
question. Yeah.
No. Do I think he is?
No.
No. No. No. Do I think he is? No. But what I will say is that I also and this is more to your point. I think that Jerry Stackhouse would have taken this deal for $30 million. I think they could have held on to $20
I think
million
he would have
to do.
taken it for $20 million.
Yeah, I think they could have done something else with their funds. While I think that Jerry Stackhouse would have been an incredible hire, and we've had this conversation before on and off camera. I think he would have been an incredible hire. I also think that doesn't detract from who Mike Malone is for this program. And I think that Jerry Stackhouse didn't. Will is right. I wish Will was here too. The stipulations, the expectations, the requirements are all different at Vanderbilt, right? We're talking about a higher level of education. No shade to
But my
Carolina.
question is, why wasn't he even considered? Why? I mean, you know how many guys come out of Kinston, North Carolina? You don't think Mr. Stackhouse could have gone to Kinston, North Carolina and pulled out the next Ingram, the
Yeah.
next Stackhouse? I mean, this is the stuff that we have to talk about. Now, why wasn't Stackhouse at? You could have got Stackhouse for half that price. Probably you got it for 10 million, probably. Okay.
Yeah.
And I am confident that if you gave him $50 million to go build a roster, he could go and attract the best talent in the South and in the Northeast, in the West, because he's going to connect on that couch.
Yeah. Is a great name, right? You and I connect with Jerry Stackhouse. Jerry Stackhouse did some things that Carolina we still talk about today. They still play videos and they play clips. But Jerry Stackhouse was 70 and 92. Okay. And while I understand that the requirements are different, I understand fans different, I understand we're talking different terms here. He was 70 and 92 in his opportunity to prove
I
that he
don't care.
belonged, but he belonged as a coach Carolina. I mean, and I understand you don't care, Hassan, but guess what? Apparently the higher ups, the people who were most important in making selections, they cared. They
Okay,
cared.
let's talk about optics. Let's talk about optics. John Shire comes into the Dean Dome. The players run out. The coaches shake. You think that's better optics with Shire versus Stackhouse or Shire versus Malone?
I
I
gotta
think the
ask.
optics for TV are so much better with Jerry Stackhouse. Jerry
I gotta.
Stackhouse looks great. He's lean. He's in great shape. He's a baller's baller, and he's from the state of North Carolina.
I gotta ask this first, though, Hassan. Are the coaches meeting at half court to shake hands like they traditionally do in the Final Four, or are they just shaking
I'm
in
talking
passing?
about the blue blood rivalry optics.
Oh man, I had to throw that Gino. It was Gino. It was Gino and Dawn Staley joke. I'm sorry. I'm sorry it didn't land, Hassan. But to answer your question, I think Jerry Stackhouse is a good looking brother. I think that he walks out there. It's definitely going to look better with Stackhouse out there. But I think if you put it on paper, Hassan, the 70 and 92 doesn't look good. And I think that's what it comes down to. The optics only matter, but the optics don't matter when you're trying to feed pockets. Okay, so if Jerry Stackhouse, he could come to Carolina and be successful, or he could come to Carolina and be 79 and 92. And while Hubert Davis, I wasn't a huge fan of Hubert Davis, he also won 70% of his games. So if I'm looking at a guy who on the other side won about 40 to 45% of his games, I don't think I want to bring that. I need to see more from Jerry Stackhouse. So maybe Mike Malone, in a way, as an interim coach, right, for a few years, you give him an opportunity. You try to make these connections. They haven't had an opportunity to build their coaching tree like they wanted to when Dean Smith was there. Roy dismantled that coaching tree. Well, now maybe you take this period of time to be able to rebuild all of that and rebuild the brand, rebuild the program, find a way to maybe be a national contender again. And if it doesn't work, maybe Jerry has now proven himself at another university, another program, to where we can bring Jerry Stackhouse in 3 to 4 years from now.
So let me ask you a question. Jerry Stackhouse, D-League Coach of the Year. Why do we only look at what happened at Vanderbilt?
Because that's the only other thing we have to look at.
No. You have, and he's been an NBA coach for a long time.
Yeah,
Why?
D-League Coach of the Year is great, but it's the GD, whatever, FEBCA league. I know somebody in the local YMCA who's been Coach of the Year the last 25 years. Should I ask him to be the coach of Duke at Cameron Indoor Stadium, lining up with Mike Malone next week? Or I'm just saying, Hassan. I'm just saying that I think that you have to have some kind of. Mike Malone has established himself as an NBA champion, not D-League, not G League. The National Basketball Association's greatest team when 2023 was Mike Malone's team. And he was considered one of the best coaches in the National Basketball Association, which is considered the greatest league in the world by most people, right? So I think that while it might not be a major move to you as far as a collegiate level is concerned, it's a major basketball move. And it's hard to look at Jerry Stackhouse, Mr. D-League's champion or coach of the year, at 70 and 92 at Vanderbilt, and not having any more experience to show for that.
Do you think Jerry Stackhouse would be 72 and 90,
70
whatever
and
you
92?
said, if he
7.
was the coach of the University of North Carolina, armed, pockets full of money? You don't think he could bring in the best basketball players?
No, I don't think he would be 70 and 92 at Carolina, because I think by the time he hit 30 and 40, they would fire him. So I think he could be successful, Hassan. I'm not disagreeing with that. What I also will argue till I'm blue in the face is that 70 and 92 is what the guys with the dollars in their pockets see. And they just came off of Hubert winning 70% of his games. And Hubert was a guy that they liked, right? They liked him because he was quiet, submissive, and he allowed people to do what they wanted to do. Right? Yeah. So, and yet he still, at the end of the day, was fired after 70% completion percentage in his victories, right? 70 and 92 is not good enough, and that's just what it is when a Jerry Stackhouse.
Let's talk about submissive. That's the part of Hubert that always rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Right? As a Carolina coach, and I'm not saying that Hubert isn't I want an alpha dog in the coaching seat.
Yeah.
I want a guy who wants to win, right? And I'm not saying Hubert doesn't want to win. I'm not saying anything negative about Hubert. What I am saying is Hubert and Jerry Stackhouse have two different personalities, okay? And one of the reasons is Jerry's not going to let you tell him who you're going to have on his bench because he's a dog, right? And that's what I think the problem we're having is we as Carolina needs to arm the whole entire bench with dogs from every championship that we've ever won, okay? And we needed a leader that says, hey, we're not going to sit back and we're not going to accept second. We're going to go toe-to-toe with Duke for every freaking recruit. And you know what I didn't hear in the press conference?
What's that?
That. I didn't hear Mike Malone say, I'm ready to battle Duke for every top recruit in the country. And that's my problem, Darryl.
So I mean, that's a valid point. Listen.
Okay. Do you think Jerry Stackhouse would have been, oh yeah, we're gonna recruit, or you think he'd went toe to toe with Jon Scheyer? I'm asking the question.
I think Jerry Stackhouse would go toe to toe with Jon Scheyer. I do. I think that, but I also think Mike Malone might be the coach that ends Jon Scheyer's stint at Duke. I do think that Hubert's biggest thing, where Jon Scheyer, where Jon Scheyer has benefited the most is in this rivalry. While the head-to-head matchups might be a little bit more even, when we talk about championships, we talk about ACC tournament titles, ACC regular season titles. Duke's winning more of those more frequently than Carolina is. So Jon Scheyer's executives look at him, and while he hasn't been as successful as they'd like, no national championship appearances, no national titles, he also has those things to his name. Well, Mike Malone can build a team that can win those things. And then what will Jon Scheyer have? We've always criticized Jon Scheyer as a basketball coach. Mike Malone is a coach. He is a basketball head. He knows the game. And so at the end of the day, they're going to have to find a way. Tanner's going to have to find a way to pay the players, get the right guys in position for Mike Malone. But now they have Mr. X's and O's. And I think that he comes with a swag that you might not anticipate from just looking at him. I don't know if you remember, but Denver was celebrating their 2023 NBA championship. And Mike Malone was big chain gang, man, holding on to his chain, talking with a swagger like I've never seen him before. And I think if he can bring the real Mike Malone to somebody's house, he can also help get those players to gravitate to who Mike Malone is and what Mike Malone can do for them and their brand.
Okay. Duke Carolina fans, download Duke Carolina, the Blue Blood Rivalry film on iTunes or Apple TV or wherever you get your VOD downloads.
Hey, Queen, you know you my guy, right? I'm always pulling for you. Tonight, when you step on the court, I step on the court too. And we in it.
There's only two games that matter. It's the North Carolina game at Duke and the Duke game that's at North Carolina.
When we wake up on game day, there's a knot in my stomach. We've been up since 6 a.m. this morning watching recorded Duke Carolina games.
I watched the Rivers shot
about 15 times.
Yeah.
Rivers on his own. Yes, at the buzzer.
We're here for the Duke game.
And it is 10 hours and 9 minutes till game time.
The Blue Devils win 85-84.
Nothing better than North Carolina and Duke. It is the best rivalry in all of college basketball. Hall of Fame coaches, great players, and usually so much at stake.
And that's it. Carolina's won it.
The fans have as much to do with the rivalry being great as the players and the coaches.
5 hours before game time.
Well, there's no question that the rivalry is there every day in our community.
Can you imagine what it would be like around here if people didn't have it? It would be terrifying.
We are 30 minutes away from tip-off.
It's one of the most exciting events you can be a part of, and I still say it's not the biggest rivalry in college basketball. It's the biggest rivalry in all of sport, bar none.
It's game time!
Blue Blood TV Podcast is available on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, guys, these shows grow when you share them. So we have a great show here. Share them with all your friends. Make them aware of the Blue Blood TV podcast.
Okay, so let's talk about bridge building, Darryl. Mike Malone, first outsider to take the job in decades, okay? I think since 1950, okay?
Yeah.
Who he surrounds himself with will be his biggest signal of how he has to build a bridge towards the Carolina way. Do you know what the Carolina way is?
Tell me about it, Hassan.
No, the Carolina's way is a way Carolina operates, right? It's and the people who understand the Carolina way are people who went to school at Carolina. There's a way of doing things. Okay.
Okay. Sure.
And then he's got to build this branch and this bridge to the NBA.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Right now, the biggest signal is going to be his bench. But I already was told that Sean May's going to be back on the bench.
Yep.
Pat Sullivan's going to be back on the bench, right?
Yep. Yep.
I mean, I love both of them. I love Pat Sullivan. I've ridden home with Pat Sullivan when we went to school together, right? I'm not anti-Pat Sullivan, but those guys are operating in the Carolina way. Mike Malone is coming with his NBA way. How does that all mesh?
I think the only way this works is if Mike Malone comes in and creates this like hybrid space where you still can respect and continue and perpetuate the Carolina tradition and the Carolina way, while also finding a way to connect the outside perspective. And I think having the NBA experience actually benefits him in this case because he can bring that into the Carolina blend, right? And also being connected to somebody like Jokic. I'm not sure if you saw Nikola Jokic commented about Mike Malone's hiring here, saying that he thought it was a really good hire, that he thought he would be able to teach the kids how to play and he would be very successful. I think that international in 2026 might be more impactful than just having the guys that are domestic, the guys that are at home. And Mike Malone has those connections through his former players. And so I think that finding a way to bridge those two things is super important between the Carolina tradition and what Mike Malone might consider the NBA way.
Okay, so do you think I think legacy on that bench is important. Pat Sullivan, Sean May, Jeff Lebo, important. That's 80s, 90s to the early 2000s, right? So Sean May won in the early 2000s, Pat won in 93. Jeff Lebo was the guy in the 80s, right? So like he was Jeff Lebo, King Rice, all those guys. So, but my question is, we're missing something. Like, I think the Carolina audience, the Carolina community, the Carolina fan base needs somebody to kind of shake up that Carolina way, that nice guy, right? Like I was confident. You put Jerry Stackhouse in the seat, you got your pit bull, right? You got your guy that's going to want to win, understands the rivalry. He can't play anymore, but this is the only way he can compete in a rivalry. And I want a coach that wants to go toe to toe, okay? Wants to go toe to toe Shire, wants to go toe to toe with that Duke staff over there and say, hey, you know, Wendell Carter, just say Wendell Carter was back in Atlanta. That's our territory. You know, New York City, that's our territory. We're not conceding nothing. And I'm not getting that sense. And that's what I want as a fan. I don't want to concede anything to Duke. Nothing.
Yeah, but son, just like any other tradition, well, most traditions, a lot of traditions, I could think about things from the 60s that we had to get rid of for good reason, right? Maybe sometimes things just run their course. And it's clear that with the two major hires and their two biggest, most financially lucrative sports, Carolina has now gone away from the traditional Carolina way. And they made a big splash with Bill Belichick, who has really no true current Carolina ties anymore, other than his 25-year-old girlfriend. And they now have Michael Malone, who also has a daughter, somewhat ironically similar to the age of Bill Belichick's girlfriend. So I think that really this is a statement from the university, a statement from the athletic department that we want names, and NIL is gonna feed into us paying big name coaches to come in and bring in big name guys.
Okay, so let's talk about recruiting. Recruiting guru, Darryl. Mike Malone has not recruited a high schooler in 20 years. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not surprising at all.
The last time he was an assistant in college was at Manhattan in 99 to 2001. He coached at Manhattan College in New York. And in 95 to 98, Providence. I think he coached Lamar Odom. You know that guy, the guy that was dating the Kardashian. I think that was one of his players, right? So
yeah, I just watched a documentary about Lamar Odom, but yeah.
Okay, so he hasn't recruited in 2 decades. Like, and the biggest problem with a coach like Belichick is, let me tell you what the biggest problem with Carolina football is. 1, the players are not that good. 2, they made a lot of mistakes. And you know why they made a lot of mistakes? Because they weren't their kids, right? So there's kids that don't tuck the football. They're kids that don't bring the football in and they fumble it, right? You know why Carolina had so many of those situations? It's because Bill Belichick didn't have to teach the fundamentals to an 18-year-old in 40 years. Because he was coaching pros, right? When you're coaching a pro,
Tom Brady specifically.
Tom Brady, if you're coaching a running back, tuck the football, bring it in. All these things that you got to remind an 18-year-old. Bill Belichick wasn't reminding his 18-year-old. And Carolina football lost a lot of games because Bill Belichick forgot how to coach. They call it a letter F, Darryl. What is it called? Fundamentals.
Fundamentals.
Okay? So my concern here is we got a guy who hasn't coached 18-year-olds. Well, he has in the NBA, but the fundamentals, you don't have to coach in the NBA. You let NBA guys go, you get the best roster, and you win, right? This is sort of like that. You got to get the best roster, but at the same time, it's a young player that's bound to make mistakes. And we talked about it in this pod with Duke. 2 years in a row, they just made mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And you know why they made those mistakes?
Because they're young.
Kids, they're young.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Boozer doesn't make that mistake 3 years from now because he has that experience to build on. And he's going to say, it's better for me to go to the freaking line, be a man, pick up my chest and shoot the 2 down and win it from my school. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. That's the concern is this guy's been in the NBA. They're not coaching how to shoot in college basketball. I mean, did you watch the finals, Darryl?
Yeah. I saw Michigan and UConn. Yes, sir.
Okay, what was the biggest takeaway from that final, from a technical aspect of that game?
I mean, I take a lot of things away. So I'm interested in hearing where you're coming from right now.
Nobody could shoot. Nobody could shoot in that game, right?
Yeah.
And these are top NIL guys. Nobody can shoot, right?
What about Elliot Cadeau? While we're here, I just want to ask what did you think, since we don't have Will today? I'm glad you brought up the finals. What did you think about the transition Elliot Cadeau made from where he was last year, being dogged by Theo Pinson on the podcast, kind of pushed aside by Carolina, and finding a new home in Michigan and becoming the most outstanding player in the national championship tournament?
I think Elliot Cadeau is, and this is my sentiments last year, is a good basketball player. He's not great. I think Elliot Cadeau is a good guard with the right setup. And I talked about this last year. He is not a Kenny Anderson. He's not a Kenny Smith. He's not a guard that can go and get you 25 points if he needs to, right? He is not like as good as the guards that we've had in previous years at Carolina, most recent. Okay. But I do think he was set up very well at Michigan, and the setup at Carolina just didn't have enough dogs up on the front line for him to play his game. So Elliot Cadeau, he's a good point guard. Is he an NBA point guard? No. Is he an NBA point guard now that he was player of the game? No, because he's not good enough. So the reality is what it is. Like he wasn't set up at Carolina correctly. Now, could he have been set up better at Carolina? 100% yes.
Yes, I agree.
Would he go to the NBA? No.
Yeah,
So
I think the thing that I'm most interested in the hiring of Mike Malone and seeing Mike Malone on the collegiate level is to your point, Hassan. These are kids. They are prone to make mistakes. They're prone to make more mistakes than the NBA guys that he's used to coaching. But if everything that everyone says about him and being a basketball head, an X's and O guy, is true, it sounds like he may have the ability to coach these guys. And because he's a former NBA coach and has probably talked to a lot of different NBA scouts and been able to scout NBA talent himself, I would be interested to see how he scouts talent in this transfer portal that we live in, because we're talking year to year, taking guys not only from high school to college. You're talking about A to B to C to D, right? Because you can go from high school to one university to another university to another. And I think it's Mike Malone's responsibility at this point, especially right now with 0 players, as we mentioned, to start assessing that talent from other universities, guys who have experience. So he's not the only one who's able to coach these guys up, because you need players with experience like Elliot Cadeau and the guys that were surrounded around him to be able to coach their teammates up in critical times. And I think Carolina's lacked that in the last few years. And I think it's pivotal. It's imperative for them to gain that going forward.
Yeah. Okay, so Darryl, rivalry is reset. Mike Malone is in the coaching pocket. Okay, give me the perspective of a Duke fan. You've spent years scouting the Carolina family, the coaching style, and from a Duke perspective, are you more terrified of Mike Malone being there, or would you be more terrified if Jerry Stackhouse was the coach? And give me your honest tobacco road.
I'm not. For the sake of Mike Malone, I'm not even going to compare it to Jerry Stackhouse. We're not even going to say just Jerry Stackhouse, because I think that it could be Jerry Stackhouse. I think that I would have a different feel if I were looking at Kenny Smith across the way. I even think that there are a couple other names for the guys they were the prospective coaches that they were looking at in like Tommy Lloyd out in Arizona. I think that those guys would probably scare me a little bit more in a way. But I think the unknown of Mike Malone might be just scary in itself. The unknown of what he's going to bring to the table. As a Duke fan, am I looking across the court and shaking in my boots? No. But that's because we bring in the talent. That's because you guys currently have zero players.
But
it's not Mike Malone that's not scaring me right now.
Do you think Mike Malone is going to flip any of those players?
I think he could. Yeah, I do think he could. I think that whoever they threw to the seat was going to have this problem. Again, when I said earlier, while Mike Malone has to have the solution, he didn't create the problem, right? It's not his fault that they're in the situation they're in. But I do think he's the guy for the job when it comes to creating a solution. And I don't know that Jerry Stackhouse, Kenny Smith, or anybody else would have been any more of a solution than Mike Malone right now. I think Mike Malone for Duke fans is TBD, right? Because we don't know what it looks like. So if he comes out and he wins the first season, he beats Duke both games going forward, do you think I see Mike Malone and start shaking in my boots? I'm gonna be quivering, Hassan, okay? But if he comes out and doesn't prove it, then at that point, I'm not going to be the only one looking at him. He's going to have some execs that are looking at him and asking some questions.
So for me, I feel like this war is won in social media, right? So I felt like Kenny Smith could potentially have been a very good pick. And the reason why I say that is because Kenny Smith knows how to look into the camera. He knows how to talk to the camera. He knows how to say to that young man, we're building something incredible at Carolina. We're going to put you in the pros. We're going to do all these things, and you need to roll with us. Yes. I'm not so sure Mike Malone can do that, because I think in 2025, social media is the real connection point. I thought we needed a television guy or somebody that we can go get clips of, right? Stackhouse, you can go get a clip of him dunking in Cameron. You can get clips of it of showing these kids what the task is, right? Kenny Smith is a TV personality, right? So I think that's what's going to win these young players. And I wanted somebody who was going to change Jon Scheyer's recruiting base. I want Jon Scheyer to say, oh, man, I got a problem now.
Well, let me ask you, though, Hassan, do you think as a dad and the father of former collegiate, student athletes, do you think that if Jon Scheyer walked into your house, that Jon Scheyer would be able to sell you on this program for your kids?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
And why?
Because he's coming with a track record of putting guys in the NBA, right? They've got a brotherhood. Like the things I want for my kids, right? So I want my kids when they go to a college, I want my kids to get the best education they can get. Okay. Duke provides that. I want my kids to have a community of players that once they go to the NBA, they got something that they can go back to. What the Duke has done in terms of creating the brotherhood, which is an offshoot of the Carolina family, which Coach K stole from Dean Smith, the brotherhood versus the Carolina family. The brotherhood is real, right? The Carolina family thing was real, okay? I want them to have family, something that they can wrap their hands around after the game. Duke provides that, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. And then I want my kids to win. And I want my kids to be in a situation where the lights are shining down on them, where they're getting maximum coverage. Okay. Yeah. Duke provides all that. Now, Carolina, it could do all that. It's done all that in the past. But now, I don't know how Mike Malone fractures the brotherhood. Like, so let's give you this outside factor. Remember this guy named Matt Doherty? Do you remember him?
Mm-hmm.
You might have been young.
Yeah, I do remember Matt Doherty.
He tried to do things too fast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The old guard still lives in Chapel Hill. And the question is Mike Malone going to get the space he needs to do the things he wants to do? Okay.
Yeah.
Is he going to get that space, right? Because the old guard, no matter how much they back up, they're going to be there. They're going to understand the Carolina way. And they're going to understand that certain things need to be a certain way. Okay?
Yeah.
And I think those are the things that, and then that $50 million sounds good, but I think that $50 million is a lot of money. And it's going to cause Mike Malone to have expectations.
So look, I think you made an interesting point, and we're talking about John Shire and selling you mainly because he's putting these guys in the NBA, right? And I think that in today's era, that's what not only do the NIL dollars bring in the good recruits, the 5-star recruits, but also what is the next move? Am I making it to the next level? And I think that Carolina, since Roy Williams, has not produced a lot of that, right? Sean May, Raymond Felton, Rashad McCants, of course, early on. But as you look later and later, you got your Kobe White, but you don't have a lot of guys that are leaving, one, after year one, and two, as lottery picks. Duke has that. Well, Carolina, I think, recognized, and the executives recognize that we need to do something different because this mold, the traditional Carolina way, the 3 to 4 year players that ultimately find their ways to cutting down the net towards the end of their tenure, that isn't how this works anymore. That's not how we're going to draw in the big names. We need to be able to bring these guys in. They give us what we want, and we give them what they want ultimately by sending them and shipping them off to the league. And so I think the Mike Malone hire, Hassan, interestingly enough, because it's not the Carolina way, is establishing a new foundation. And if you're asking me, what do I see as a Duke fan? Well, if he comes in and he finds 2 to 3 guys that he's able to send to the league immediately, first year out, that's going to bring probably 2 to 3, maybe 4 more the next season. And if he's able to do that and recreate it, next thing you know, you're talking 5-star recruits in bunches, right? 5, 6, 4 to 5-star guys who are coming in and going out. And at that point, maybe my perception of Mike Malone and this hire changes. But it's got to change the old traditional way because it doesn't work anymore. Not Roy Williams' way anyway.
Okay, so you're saying there's a new standard. So let me ask you a question. Mike Malone, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. What's the standard for him to get a championship? He's got the money. He's got $50 million in his pocket. He's going to have the money to go with the NIL. Talk to me.
I think the standard is actually Final Four by year 3 and a national championship in 4.
See, I think the $50 million changes that. I think he's got to get an Elite 8 in year 2, and I think he's got to be battling for a national championship from that point on. $50 million?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't disagree with you. $50 million. What Chris Tucker say? $50 million? Who you kidnap? Chelsea Clinton? Like that changes the game. That changes that number itself. Bill Belichick's making $10 million per year. They expect him to have more success than he did last year. Mike Malone making $8.3 million a year. Again, that's Bill Self. That's Tom Izzo. That's Dan Hurley. That means you're expected to be just as good as those guys, if not better.
Yeah. So, and in NIL, it's not like we got to recruit high school kids, right? All you have to do, like my expectation is I'm going to give him 1 year to just get adjusted, right? But then after that, Darryl, he has to deliver, right? Because what does it take to deliver? It's Rick Pitino put it bluntly. It's not about blue bloods anymore. It's about contract. It's about signing freaking contracts. It's about bringing in the best players to University of North Carolina. It's about signing them, highlighting them, putting money in their pockets, and they come in and win a championship for you, right? So you don't need 4 or 5 years to develop your players. That's Roy Williams, what you're talking, Darryl. if this guy's as good as he says he is, he should be able to do it.
But I don't think he's developing. I don't think it's about developing players. I think he's walking into a situation where, like you said, he doesn't have any guys right now, right? So this first year, I expect this first year to have some growing pains. But by year two, because year one, he has a full year, right, to be able to get into the recruiting field. He knows he's the head coach of North Carolina. Everyone knows he's the head coach of Carolina. By year two, he should be pulling in these 5-star recruits that we're talking about. And yes, at that point, he should start battling for Elite Eights. And after that, it should be Final Four or bust, National Championship or bust, and these guys have to win. But I do give him a first couple years because that first year is going to have growing pains. But by year two, he's got to start winning a lot of games, and he's going to have to make a deep run into the tournament.
Darryl, we couldn't agree more. And on that note, that brings us to the end of this truly historic episode 15. We talked about the end of the Naismith to Dean Smith lineage, the departure of Hubert Davis, the start of a brand new chapter with Mike Malone. The Mile House City has officially met Southern Part of Heaven, and the 919 will never be the same. It's a new family affair now in Chapel Hill, from the NBA sidelines to the UNC volleyball courts. We're going to watch closely to see Mike Malone rounds out his staff and how the Carolina family reacts to an outsider holding the keys to the castle. If you enjoyed this deep dive with Darryl and I, make sure you subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your hoops fix. Your support keeps the rivalry going. Follow us on Instagram for all the breaking news at Blue Blood Rivalry on Instagram and on the updates itself. For Darryl, Will is sick today. I'm Hassan Pinto. The lineage may have changed, but the mission stays the same. One rivalry, two shades of blue, always one winner. We'll catch you next time on the Blue Blood Rivalry podcast. And as we always say, what do we say, Darryl?
We out.
We out.